I have been telling men that when they go through a divorce or they're trying to get visitation right with their own children, that it's best not to even go to court until I met you. So now I'm gonna recommend everybody to you. But because when they go to court, they lose more than they gain. They have to pay for their lawyer, and then
No,
sometimes they have to pay for the ex-wife lawyer. Then they have to get a representative for the child in the courthouse, and counseling and all that kind of crap. So the man end up paying everything in most cases, not all. And then if he does get visitation right, the woman is still bring the child back home before midnight. Don't let it be with around another, all kinds of rules and regulations. The men just give up. So I had told men rather than fighting this, because if a woman going to try to keep a child away from the child's father, that says a lot about the woman. She's an evil woman. And so, but when I hear you, it seems like you know how to make it work for the man. My advice for them not going to court with these other people, is that bad advice?
well, I don't know the laws of your state. I'm licensed in Nevada and California. In our states, it is
Well, I'm
now
in California. I'm in Los Angeles.
well, in our states, it's now a preference for joint physical custody. So if you ask the court to give you joint physical custody, they must do it unless they can find a reason why it's not in this child's best interest. So in my office, I tell clients, we ask her, we demand joint. She says no, we take her to court, we get it. I just stop negotiating. The opposite advice. It's like, don't make her think she has power. She doesn't. The
Yeah.
statute in Nevada says it's default. Every married couple and unmarried couple have equal rights physically and legally to a child until a court orders otherwise. So now I'm just using that and getting joint instantly and easily.
Oh,
In
good.
fact, it's almost impossible not to get joint, which is a problem because some cases it's not appropriate. And I'm like working my tail off to say this is not the parent that should have joint. But so that's a really big benefit. And like I said, men often have the incorrect idea that if they're nice to the mother of their children, she'll be nice to them.
Yeah.
No,
No.
no, it's like blood in the water, man. Watch Shark Week.
Yeah, that's right.
You don't. Mama bear's not nice. She sees weakness, she eats you. Like no, no, no. So I wish parents could get along. There's a million out there that do. They don't hire me because they work it out themselves. So I see a skewed population of people that can't get along. But I say try a little, and if you don't, let the court do it. Because
Yeah.
you're right, it is expensive. Justice is expensive. Really good justice can be really expensive. It depends on how vindictive she is on the other side. She can make you fight for years with false allegations of sexual abuse, child abuse,
Yeah.
alcohol abuse. I've seen it all. I'm going to see it the rest of my life, but we can't account for everything. I try to get people to document and protect themselves. Just don't be naive. That's the first thing. Like if she's videotaping you or she's talking really differently and her phone's on the table, it's because she's videotaping you
Yeah.
and pretending.
Good
Like
point.
things like that. You're like, just use your, instincts. Trust your gut when it's telling you something's weird here.
You are so right about that. I wanted to ask if there's going to be a divorce, if the man apply for the divorce first, is he more likely to get control of the children? Because I notice when women apply for divorce first, they tend to end up with the children. Does it matter who apply for divorce and custody of the kids?
So 90% of divorces are initiated by women. I don't know why.
Yeah.
They're always unhappy. We're always unhappy.
Yeah.
I don't know why. But the legal advantage to being the plaintiff, the initiating party, is you get to talk first and last at trial. That's just a plaintiff advantage. So it is an advantage legally. Now, most cases don't go to trial, so it's not an advantage that typically comes to fruition.
Yeah.
But I think it sends a message to the court. So I encourage my males to file first because I think when you say to the court, I want my kids, she's withholding my kids from me. I want my kids. They believe you. If, on the other hand, she files first and says he's a monster, he's an alcoholic, he's spending money on hookers instead of a family, he doesn't care about our kids, he's never bathed up. And then the guy comes in, he's like, wait, I want my kids. He doesn't sound as credible. It sounds defensive. It sounds like, if you make allegations against her, you're doing it just as a defense, not as a truth. And so I like to go in as the filing person. It's not crucial. It shouldn't be whoever files gets them, but there is an advantage. I find that women plan for divorce 6 months, a year, 2 years in advance, and they have their ducks in a row, and they got money stashed, and they lost all their baby weight. They got their boobs fixed. They're like ready to go. And men are like blindsided every time. So
Yeah.
I got 2 years to make up for. Like, I can't fix the 2 year planning. The money's all gone, man. She already spent it. It's already like in the Caymans,
Yeah.
you know? And so I wish men paid attention. I'm like, honey, she doesn't look good for you when you've been with her 20 years. She wasn't like, I want to look good for you. Pay attention.
Yeah.
You know, 'cause then I can try and offset some of that planning, but it's hard. You know, they've already poisoned the kids, like they've been saying for 2 years. You know, dad's not home again. He's probably with his secretary.
Yeah.
Like, and the dude's like surprised that their kid hates him. I'm like, no, you can't undo 2 years of mental warfare that's been sneak attacking you for 2 years while you're working your butt off to pay for her new Lexus. Like, God,
That's amazing.
it's some dirty stuff. It's dirty.
It's amazing. By law, are men required to pay child support and spousal support up until 18? Is it 18 is the limit?
Well, so it's not gender, obviously, in the law. It's the higher income earning parent, which more often is the male than the woman, but not always. Then he would pay child support till 18 or 19 if the child's still in high school until they graduate. They have to be in full-time high school, but yeah, it stops when they graduate from high school. And it, like you said, it's often the male. It depends on the custodial arrangement. In California, you guys have different laws than us.
Yeah.
For example, if a man, let's say he earns $500,000 a year, and he has 90% custody of the kid, because the percentage in California is relevant, and she has 10%. She makes 20 grand a year. He'll pay her child support, even though she has 20% or 10% custody. That's the California law. That is not the Nevada law. In Nevada, up to 50%, we'll look at their relative incomes. But if he has what we call primary custody in Nevada, meaning he has more than 60% of the overnights, she pays him no matter what her income is. And so we have an advantage here in that regard. I mean, they can deviate here if he's that rich and she's that poor, but that's one of the things that California does that I don't love and that men don't like, you know?
Yeah.
It's expensive to live in California, though, compared to here. So I understand why they're trying to do that.
Yeah.
People always think, and people always think like we have 50-50 custody. It's no child support. I'm like, no, they equalize the households. They don't want a kid living in a mansion one week and a shack the next. So even if you share 50-50, they're going to figure out the richer person's going to pay some significant support to the other to try to bridge the gap so the kid's lifestyle is somewhat acclimated, you know, to normalcy, which is, I understand. It makes sense. The problem is the men that come in and go, well, she's getting her nails done, she's getting her hair done, she got extensions, my kid's wearing floods and they're up his butt and she doesn't buy him food. And I'm like, yeah, guess what? You have a custody battle. That's what the court says. If you have someone that is so neglectful of your child that they spend all the child support on themselves and neglect your child, you should take your kid away. This isn't a monetary problem. This is a parental problem. And a bigger one than money can fix. Like, you don't get to micromanage the spending of your ex, but you can say they shouldn't have custody. They just are downright neglectful and being narcissistic and just wasting money on their vanity instead of their child. I mean, that's the answer.
You also have an approach where you help men save money. And that's rare in going through these type of situations. How and why does your approach help men save money?
Well, that's our intention. Obviously, best intentions fall sometimes, but I try to settle cases. It's better for the families to settle cases for a bunch of reasons. Emotional baggage, but mostly 70% of people are more likely to follow a court order if they agree to it. If it's imposed on them by a court, they are 70% less likely to follow it than if they agree to it. And so it's much better to try to garner an agreement with particularly the parent of the child. We don't want some stranger sitting on the bench making decisions about kids they've never even seen. That's definitely not ideal. I mean, thank God they're there, and lots of times I get great help from them, but the ideal is two parents that love and know their children making decisions together. So we do whatever we can to help people settle despite what people think. But we don't do that to our client's detriment. But it's a lot less expensive to mediate and to try to negotiate and to try to, meet your partner halfway. I try to help our clients not aggravate acrimony, not engage, don't make it worse. Just, try to help them dial back the conflict, be generous. Those sort of things will help save money in the case. And then also I find that, like I said in the beginning of our conversation, Men are so chivalrous, they're giving away money they don't have.
Yeah.
I'm like, you netted out your income? Dude, you can't give her that much support. You're going to be on your mom's lawn chair the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Like, let's actually get you enough money to live, and let's incentivize her to go work. Like, you give her that much money, she's never going to work.
Absolutely.
You know, and so we try to, be realistic. What does it cost to live? Save some for yourself. Wean her off financially, drop it down over a period of time so she's encouraged to go become self-supporting or get remarried or whatever. Like, so those are some of the tricks, that we try to do. But
amazing.
Aggravating cases cost money.
Yeah.
And emotionally, it's horrifically traumatic to families.
You give advice to men that I thought was amazing. And I want to understand, I thought it was good advice, but I want to know, how did you come up with it? You tell men to avoid moving before, or to wait until they can talk to their children about it before leaving their homes. And why is that?
I mean, it's just, possession's 9/10 of the law. If you have possession of the home and you're physically in it, she has no control. As soon as you step out of that home, all control goes to her, absent a court order.
Yeah.
So if possible, if you can stay in the home, even if you're in a different bedroom, because I totally get sharing a bed with a hostile enemy is a very uncomfortable place to be and dangerous. It could uptick volatility, particularly when alcohol and drugs are involved. So I encourage sleeping in a different room, but I would love to see my guys stay in the home till at least we can get the initial agreement or court order in place, establishing a schedule. And then the money. I mean, as soon as you take, let's say, one income household or a 2-income household, and you have to pay for 2 households instead of 1 household, we're in financial trouble immediately with almost every case. Very rarely are people wealthy enough where that affects them nil. And so I like to get the monetary pieces in place and help them plan for that. Like, listen, bud, you're going to have to rent a 1-bedroom apartment even though you have 2 kids. That's okay. Let's just plan for it. 1 bed in your room, 1 bed in her, like keep the daughter separate, help them navigate those sort of pitfalls so we don't have to move twice. And we don't have an excuse for the court to be concerned about the kids going back and forth, and make sure you're in their school zone. And, have you thought about your commute and the fact that your kids are in 2 separate schools and they start an hour apart? Like, you're going to be in the car all day. Those sort of things. We're good at those logistics. Those are mom tasks. And that's the advantage of having women represent men.
Yeah.
We can help men think like a mom when they haven't had to before. Like, let me help you with these basic things. Now you can move out. This is a good apartment place to be, or, don't sign this lease.
And I've heard of several cases, or many now, where when there's going to be a divorce, the woman tend to go and take the money out of the bank, out of the checking account, before the guy even knows about it. How can men avoid that?
Pay attention. I mean, that's the problem. We all get complacent in long relationships, whether it's employment relationships or personal relationships. If she's been in charge of your finances for 30 years, just take a glance every now and again. I mean, audit your accounts. Like, not because you don't trust your wife, but 2 brains are better than 1.
Yeah.
What if she starts slipping? I mean, here's what's interesting. The 50th percentile of divorce doesn't hit till the 20th year of marriage. People think like, half of marriages end in divorce, and they're thinking the first 2 years. It's year 20.
Wow.
And so, these people are in their 50s and 60s by the time that's happening. Sometimes you'll have some physical or mental health reasons why someone's not doing a good job.
Yeah.
And, I see some pre-dementia or some early onset Alzheimer's, and they're doing reckless things, or menopause will do it. I mean, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but we'll just do more reckless things and the money's disappearing.
Yeah.
So we all should be smart enough to audit our accounts once a year, every 6 months. If you see the behavior shift, and suddenly you're getting like a past due notice in the mail, and she's like, I just forgot to pay that bill. Okay, this is when you should look. Suddenly your mortgage is 6 months behind, but she's got new boobs. Like, pay attention.
Yeah.
Just pay attention. Don't put your head in the sand, because I can't fix it sometimes. And men cannot do what women do. My guys are like, she took 20 grand. I'm taking the other 20 and starving her. I'm like, no. You look abusive. You have more financial and physical, strength than her. If you do the same thing she did, you look like an abusive monster, and she looks like a victim trying to be proactive.
Yeah.
There is some gender bias, somewhat for good reason in that case. Like, I'm not naive to the fact that there is a power difference. So I always say you cannot do the same thing as her. You can't call her a bitch just because she called you an asshole. You can't. Like, they aren't equals. You're physically stronger. It feels like you're going to hurt her.
Amazing.
So you have to just kind of take the high road when it comes to verbal and physical, presence. Even in court, I'm like, buddy, you're sitting too like high, like elbowing my clients, and now on Zoom, I'm like texting them. Look like you're about to mug someone. Smile, like let your shoulders relax. You look like you're going to go through the screen.
You're funny. That is so true. One point that you keep making that I think is very important, that men need to pay attention. They tend not to pay attention. And so they're surprised by a lot of things.
You guys are one-track thinkers. We like to pride ourselves on our multitasking ability. Well, we use it for evil sometimes.
Yes, absolutely.
You know?
Do you only represent men or men and women?
So we represent men. Primarily, we take females by referral only. So it has to be a personal referral that I know that sends them. And so it used to be about 5% of our practice was female. Now it's like 20%. I'm like, oh my God, I don't even want them. But, you know, it's a friend of a friend, and they have to vouch that they're not the monsters that want to take kids from, you know, dads that are good.
Yeah.
And we'll fire them if we find out otherwise. But they can be lovely. I think it's important for my skill set, frankly, to represent both sides. So I see the court from both sides of the gender, and I keep my skills sharp on both ends. And so I tend to intentionally keep some smaller percentage of female clientele.